part of the Torah portion. We'll read it and then we'll break it down into closed sections. So, Rebecca, you want to read?
Sure.
Thank you.
Emor highlights directed instructions to the Kohanim, the priestly class.
Great. You can read from the text itself.
Oh, from the text itself?
Yeah. Page Leviticus 21, 1, and we'll read through the first 10 verses.
And the Lord said to Moses, speak to the priests, the sons of Aaron, and say to them that none of them shall defile himself for the dead among his people, except for his nearest kin, his mother, his father, his son, his daughter, his brother, or his virgin sister, who is near to him because she has had no husband, for he may defile himself. He shall not defile himself as a husband among his people, and so profane himself. They shall not make tonsures of.
Actually, let's stop right there. So, the priest who has community responsibility can't participate in death rituals for any among his family, but somebody's missing in that list. Who's missing?
His wife?
Yep. So, for his wife, he actually can defile himself. And that's an important piece there. So let's look at some of the commentary. So he could not he's not supposed to defile himself for any person among his family except for his mother, his father, his son, his daughter, and his brother. So at that point, they're saying it's okay. He can defile himself, which means he can't serve the community for the week of mourning. And, there's some other things he can't do. And he can also defile himself for a sister who doesn't have any family. But he doesn't do it for his in-laws. So if his brother-in-law died, he would not defile himself to lead the service. It would have to be dependent on somebody else. Um, I, some of you who might have the Women's Torah commentary, there's a comment about this on page 741, where it examines how does the text not have the wife mentioned? Does anybody have Women's Torah commentary 741? Would you read? Great, Cindy.
Um, these verses stipulate that Kohanim may not come into contact with a corpse, with the exception of close relations. The rabbis of the Talmud later applied this list of close relatives to all mourners. That is, the relatives for whom a Jew sits Shiva are those enumerated in Emor, with the rabbi's addition of wives and married sisters. The rabbis interpreted the clause, except for the relatives that are closest, literally flesh to him, he may defile himself, as a veiled reference to a wife. Go on.
That's okay.
In spelling out the rabbinic definition of marriage, the Mishnah obliges a husband to bury his deceased wife and then raises the issue of what constitutes a proper burial. One rabbi's answer takes for granted the vital role of women professionals in public mourning. If anyone kills any human, I'm sorry, that's
Okay. So I have maybe a little different I have 741, it may be a little different version.
oh, okay.
And it in the second paragraph down, it says, how do we account for the text's silence concerning the wife? Do you have that?
Not on that page.
Oh, interesting. It's called Another View.
Huh.
Okay.
No.
So, does anybody else have it?
Oh, wait, I found it. It's at the top. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry. My husband's screaming. I've got to go deal with him.
Okay.
Sorry.
Um, so this piece of the text is very interesting, and it says, how do we account for the text silence concerning the wife? The Torah gives two examples of a husband burying a wife, where Abraham buries Sarah and Jacob buries Rachel. But these cases do not pertain to priests and thus do not shed light on the law. But the text, this commentator goes on. This is a Tamara Ashkenazi, who's the editor of this version, and she's taught here. She's a temple member. One could claim that the wife's absence from the list of relatives reflects her more marginal status. As Katrina Gross observed, after studying documents from the 14th century, women do not become member of their husband's lineage. Only their children do. And so women could be termed as a foreign element in their husband's family. And then she goes on and she reflects on the opposite. Perhaps no mention is made of the wife because none is necessary, because the wife is included ipso facto. Of course, the wife would be included as one of the family members that he can defile himself for to do her funeral. And then she goes to say there's evidence for it. Her question at the end is, if a priest may not bury his wife, who then buries her? The law in Parshat Emor permits the priest to bury his mother, unless a priest's wife can definitely be buried by her son. If there is no son, then the female members of the household or members of her family of origin kill still come in contact with her corpse and bury her. So what she's saying is if the priest couldn't do it, then the other women of the household could do the burial practice. Suzanne, I see your hand. Unmute, please. Can't hear you yet, Suzanne. I don't know why the unmute isn't working. There
Okay,
you are.
here I
Hear
go.
me now?
Okay, this might be a ridiculous question, but I must ask it. When all of these rituals take place and who can bury and who can't bury, does that mean they can't come to the funeral? Is there a funeral? What does bury mean? Put the dirt in the ground? Put the coffin in the ground?
It means come to this funeral, put the dirt in the ground, cover the ground. Most of the time, a Kohen will stand outside. In today's world, they would stand on the parking lot and observe the funeral going on, but not go on the actual earth that is the burial ground. So, yes, you're shaking your head because
Because what is the origin of that? That seems a little bit brisk, a little bit too unfeeling. That the children, the relatives, whatever, can't be there close by.
okay. In Women's Torah, turn to page 725. I see Panina, you have a comment. That's a really great question, Suzanne.
Thank you.
And I'm not sure how to respond. It's a great question. I have the same one. Panina, unmute, please.
I'm not sure all about this. All I know is that I can go from what's going on today and try to figure out why the law was put together. I know that today a lot of women actually volunteer when there is somebody that they know passed away, and they go and they wash the body and they take care of it till. And today, because of all these questions of who can and who can't, and the one who can maybe are not, they're too crazy to do it, or too close to the person to actually do it, because it hurts so much, that they had to do some kind of a law that somebody should do this. So they gave you a choice of people. But as what we see today, as a result of all this, first of all, you are the funeral home, and they take care of all this stuff. So I guess because of all this uncertainty of the people that are designated, maybe too queasy even to do that. So I think the result came of what we see today. There is a funeral home. There are people that are regularly working there to do it. And I know that when my husband passed away, one of my great nieces in marriage uh, volunteered to go and wash the body. They do let you women do it. And a lot of people that I knew in Cleveland, they go and they volunteer. It's too queasy, it's hurtful. So not everybody has the stamina or the will or the courage to do it. It's dealing with the unknown, because after death you really don't know what's going on. So it's scary at one point. It's also queasy. It hurts too much. So the way I look at it, it's they had to come up with some kind of an idea of who is going to do it. But today there is an organized companies that take care of it to make this particular
So they made
situation
it
easy on
pragmatic.
us.
Thank you. They made it pragmatic and professionalized it, but that's very modern.
Right.
In other words, the text is this is an ancient text. It probably was adapted from previous texts and literally woven into this part of Leviticus, which is the handbook for the priests. So the
Right.
Kohanim would know
Right.
what they're
And
doing.
today the Kohen is not even allowed to be next to a body and next to a
Right.
funeral place.
So let's look at the comment on page 725 in the Women's Torah. And it's going to explain why this is. Who else has Women's Torah commentary that could read page 725, comment 1 in the comments? Okay, Mara and Harv.
So you're referring to if a priest may not bury his wife, who then buries her?
It's on page, yes, none shall defile for any dead person. It's the text.
I see it.
Yeah, great.
While lay people may come into contact with corpses, priests must restrict such contact since dead bodies are considered highly defiling. Although priests are generally prohibited from such exposure, a concession allows them to defile themselves for their closest blood relatives, but not for kinfolk related by marriage. The list of exemptions does not mention the wife. This raises the question, if a priest is a priest allowed to participate in the burial of his own wife? Although the topic is not addressed explicitly, this passage seems to preclude a priest from touching his dead wife and attending her burial. Presumably, he can supervise the burial from a certain distance.
So it has this technical distance, and the question is, what's the function of the priest? The Kohen has to serve the community as many days as possible. I see several hands, David and then Cindy.
Yes, the Art Scroll version in the commentary, when the commentary to each of you shall not contaminate himself to a dead person among his people. The commentary says among his people refers to if the dead person is, quote, among the people, end quote, meaning that other Jews are there to assume responsibility for the burial, then a Kohen may not participate in it. But if the corpse is isolated with no one to care for it, then even a Kohen Gadol is required to stop everything and bury it, citing Rashi and Sifra.
Great, which means you can't leave the dead body unburied. That's why
Right.
Jews bury very quickly.
Right.
I see other comments. Thank you, David. Cindy.
What about an adopted child since it's not a blood relative?
Hmm? Hmm? Hmm. Let's read the next comment and see what the text says. It's right on there. You have it there, number 2.
Yeah,
Relatives.
relatives. Sha'ir is a kinship term that denotes what in English are known as blood ties. The present translation renders the term literally in 1812 to 13, which prohibits a man from sexual relations with his aunt because she is his parent's flesh. The priest may defile himself only for certain flesh and blood relatives.
So he might be able to no, I think it seems like not. He would not be able to
Right.
do the burial of his adopted son because it would be like other people. He wouldn't, it doesn't have an exemption, which on one hand would be very, again, very hard. Where does the humanity of the priest come in? Panina, I see your hand.
I'm wondering if this was supposed to be the answer to old customs where they're even being practiced today in India. When the husband dies, they burn the wife with the body, the live wife with the dead body of the husband. And they're doing it, I understand, till today. So maybe it's to separate us from the other people who used to do things like that or involve or some kind of a paganism. So they are trying to come up with a human being that is going to be to show the difference of the caring and paying attention and not destroy the life of somebody else along with the person who is being buried. So there were so many pagan rituals that are involved
So this may be a
women
response to that.
specifically. That maybe this is an answer, one tried answer that
Thank
they
you.
come up with
Good
to
point.
not follow the other those rituals where you
Okay.
burn the wife
Thank you,
together with
Panina.
them.
We're going to let somebody else talk now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good point. So Marina, I see your hand, then Mara, and I see Howard. Okay.
I thought maybe the institution of adoption is a legal step or institution of modern times because there were multiple people in a household of old, and the young person who joined the household was not considered an adopted child, but just one of the strangers who was part of the household. So it was that child wouldn't have been either blood related, but just one of the household.
So the priest would not defile themselves in the
In
burial.
burial, no.
Thank you. Thank you. Mara.
So I have a commentary in my text relating to the phrase except for his kin, and it states a concession to the natural feelings of the priest or man as man. The word for kin denotes the closest possible bond of relationship. The wife is not mentioned because, as throughout the Torah, man and wife are regarded as one flesh, and his wife is here understood of itself.
That's interesting. Although the women who were the wives of the Kohanim did not participate at the ritual, any kind of public ritual in the temple. So maybe at home they're considered as one, but certainly ritually women were not considered as obligated or able to lead the community in rituals that the Kohanim did. So that's an interesting comment. Thank you for bringing that up. Who's the author?
Sansino Hertz edition.
Oh, Hertz. Okay, so that's that's sort of a 1950s conservative movement commentary.
Yeah, I think it's 1960 actually.
1960. Great.
Yeah.
Great. Howard. Thank you, Mara. Unmute, please, Howard.
I
Okay.
think that it seems like the priests, the Jerusalem priests that wrote this were very, very interested in the idea that a priest could be defiled by by dealing with a dead body. And why is this? It might have been because of competition with the other religions, such as in Canaan and in Egypt, where they were very involved with priests spending weeks with dead bodies and performing rituals and embalming them, and it was all about dead bodies. So they wanted to make a distinction that we as Jews don't do that. In fact, our priests aren't even allowed to touch dead bodies.
Good. So distinguishing Jewish practice from that which was in Egypt and other ancient religions.
Maybe in Canaan.
To contain it and also to say, we don't do that.
The Canaanites did maybe.
Interesting, yeah. Let's take one last comment on this point. I see Suzanne.
I would just like to comment on over the centuries how far we have come. At most Jewish funerals, if the family that comes very close, every place, all around the coffin, etc., if they wish to come right up to the bema of the funeral home or the synagogue or wherever the funeral is and touch the person, it's a form of love and caring and saying goodbye. I find this so, in my heart of hearts, I find this disturbing, and I am not happy with this portion. It just feels inhumane. That's it. I mean, look how far we've come.
That we have come pretty far, but Kohanim, the Kohanim don't have the jobs they did in this ancient, or that is imagined by the text in this ancient world, in terms of making certain things pure, creating expiation for sin, leading forgiveness rituals, all that, which was part of the temple culture, is not part of our culture. And we've adapted other things, including words that allow people to behave differently. Even Kohanim in the Orthodox community have a very minimal role. You know, on a Shabbat morning at the end of the Torah service, sometimes Kohanim will do a blessing. Birkat Kohanim, the blessing for that. And all the Kohanim come in the community, come forward, put the talit over their head, turn and bless the congregation, and then sit down. They also may be the first people who have an aliyah in the Torah service. But aside from that, Kohanim, really since the destruction of the temple, and we're talking 586 of the Common Era, it's a long time, we have not had ongoing function for HaKohen. Howard, I see your hand.
I'm just a question about tradition in a traditional Jewish funeral service, isn't their coffin always closed? That concept of an open coffin would be something very, very non-Jewish.
Oh, I think it's a matter of choice.
Well, you can choose to do anything. You eat pork.
My family wished for the coffin to be open.
I don't know what the tradition is out there. Is there open coffins in conservative or Orthodox practice?
I tell you, I've been a rabbi 47 years. I've never done a funeral with an open coffin. Um, I, and I don't know what the practice is now at Wilshire Boulevard Temple, but the practice certainly that that I was guided by was Harvey Fields, and he was a serious student of Torah and had values regarding Jewish practice. And the practice of the temple, once Harvey became the senior rabbi, was that there were not open casket funerals. It may have happened prior to that. And I guess today it is the family has a lot of say as to what it is. But Jewish practice would say the family says goodbye, you close the casket, and then the funeral begins.
I have to apologize. I have to apologize. There was a viewing time before the formal funeral began, a viewing time where we stood in a line and we said goodbye. It was not during the funeral. Okay, I apologize.
Right.
Then the casket.
Okay. And that's an important piece. And that is usually exclusively for the family intimates, not for the whole community. Merle?
When my mother died, and I guess technically I'm a Kohen, but I was in the it was at Hill her funeral was at Hillside. And I when she died, I was with her in the nursing home here. But when Aaron and Arnie got to the cemetery, you opened the casket, or somebody opened the casket so Sharon could say goodbye to her grandmother. But
Probably.
otherwise, and I
Yeah.
think I don't remember if you did it or somebody from Hillside did it, but that was it. Then the casket was closed, and I was allowed to stay in the sanctuary. There were several rabbis there, or the chapel at Hillside, and it
Right.
was a good feeling for Sharon to be able to say goodbye to her mother, to her grandmother, excuse me, who she was so close to. But
Good.
I think there are different policies depending on where you are and how you practice your religion.
Exactly. Exactly. Now, I would like to move back to the text. Okay.
But
So
just real quickly, doesn't someone from the family have to identify the body right before?
exactly.
That's what I was going to say.
That somebody has to identify, and then the funeral home does the paperwork, which is required for the state of California. And then you can do the rest of the service. So we're going to go on to the text, verse 5, because it's going to keep talking about the Kohanim, and it's going to give us
Necessarily.
more instruction. In the women's Torah, it's on 726, verse 5, 8, 19. Somebody else read, please. Okay. Rebecca, you want to take it away?
Sure. They shall not make tonsures upon their heads, nor shave off the edges of their beards, nor make any cuttings in their flesh. They shall be holy to their God, and not profane the name of their God, for they offer the offerings by fire to the Lord, the bread of their God. Therefore they shall be holy. They shall
Let's
not.
stop. there. Let's stop there. This last sentence gives us why, right? This is why the Kohanim need to be able to be available to the community. They offer the community's offerings for forgiveness, for Thanksgiving. They offer the food offerings, the truma, and so they must be holy, meaning they need to be pure and kosher enough to do the work of the ritual at the Mikdash, so the at the sacred ritual center. Now, number 5 goes into an interesting comment, and this is again, Suzanne, you may not like this as well. Because the comment is the law does not prohibit priests from all displays of mourning, but these particular signs of mourning in the ancient world, they were not allowed to do. To shave the corners of the head or cut their beards. Why do you think that was? Nina?
Okay, I think that this is all their perception of how to keep other people from getting sick from the same thing that killed this person that died. Today you have laws that the city is going to give you where the cemetery can be, how far it is from people who living there, because there is always the knowledge. We know that the body is decayed and there is bacteria, and then you cannot go and plant trees and eat their fruit from a ground that you know that there is a whole dead field of dead bodies there. So there is a reason also, I think, that they didn't quite know how to explain what we today we can put under a Microsoft. They had to give some kind of a protection the way they saw it to the person, to the people around the body. So the Kohen, if he is unique, then he is going to be the one person. It's not going to be anybody that can go there and do whatever they want. So I think it was their way of trying to protect the people from actually dying, because it's not that they knew, like Miriam, when she was sick, to separate
Nina
her.
must be Bivakasha.
Okay. That's my perception.
That is a perspective that we have as moderns, that this is an attempt to contain disease that might be associated with death. But the text in verse 5 is basically saying they can't do things that other people did at death. Because sometimes when somebody dies, people did things to hurt themselves, to show their pain physically. And the text is saying you can't do what the Egyptians did, what Assyrians did, what Babylonians did. You're a Jew. You can't slash your skin or cut your traditional beards. You have to still maintain what is Jewish practice about how you take care of your body. The text is saying we're not like the other people in our neighborhood. And that's part of Jewish ritual.
The same way that they separated Miriam.
Thank you. We're going to go on to verse 7. And this is again setting up something for the Kohen as to, well, who can this guy marry? Rebecca, would you still read that?
Yes. They shall not marry a harlot or a woman who has been defiled. Neither shall they marry a woman divorced from her husband, for the priest is holy to his God. You shall consecrate him, for he offers the bread of your God. He shall be holy to you, for I, the Lord, who sanctify you, am holy. And the daughter of any priest.
Let's stop there. So it's right here, this again, they're reminding us, why is this law? Because the Kohanim have to do this work that nobody else can do, so they can't get involved in other kinds of behavior. So somebody with a women's Torah commentary, would you read verse 7 through 8 of the commentary on page 727? Cindy, do you see it?
The restrictions concerning whom priests may marry reflect a concern with protecting both the priest's lineage and their reputation. On the one hand, the priesthood passes down from father to son, and thus the marriage restrictions can assure priests that their sons are of their own line. On the other hand, priests who are charged with the care and maintenance of the sanctuary are most likely expected to behave in a way appropriate to their esteemed station. Since the members of a priest's family partake of his portion of the holy sacrifices and live in his household, the holiness code likewise expects them to conduct themselves with a certain level of propriety. Thus, only women of good repute are considered appropriate wives. For the same reason, a priest's daughter comes under close scrutiny, and her father should take action if her behavior is inappropriate for one of her station.
So in this world, there's an expectation for certain appropriate behavior for the Kohen. And it raises questions about appropriate behavior for leadership and what is required. And here's saying you can't taint the priest. The Kohen has to marry a woman with a clean background, and in that world, that meant not being a prostitute and not being married before, which we might have comments about today. But the text is trying to insist that the Kohen be perfect and those people surrounding the Kohen be perfect, which relates to a variety of issues that we could raise today in terms of our political environment. But I want to share my text again because there is a commentary by the Meor Einaim, who is a Hasidic commentator from Poland in the 18th century, that's trying to egalitarianize, if that's the word, the issues around the priesthood and saying that everybody here, if you look at Meora and Naim, is a commentary that is really quite wonderful. Would anybody like to read this piece here, if you can see it well?
I can read it.
Great.
Okay.
Go for it.
Okay. Has every one of Israel contains the entire Torah. This includes sacrificial rites, even though they were performed only by the priests. Every worshiper is called a priest, Kohen. Indeed, when there is no priest available in the synagogue, an ordinary Jew can step into his place. We read in Mishnah, Pirkei Avot, 1:12, be of the disciples, of Aaron, loving peace and pursuing peace, loving people and bringing them near to Torah. What does it mean? If he holds fast to my strength, he will make peace for me. All her pathways are peace. Thus, peace is made among the heavenly forces above, causing peace in the lower realms as well, and there will be no war.
So Meora Einaim is responding as well to the world in Poland, where there's very, very strict orthodoxy, and he's a Hasidic rabbi. And he's saying, but this priesthood, let's be frank, it's not that holiness is not only in the Kohen. Every Jew has that holiness within them. And look, even the most traditional of texts say there's an ordinary person. If there is no Kohen, there's an ordinary person who can do the rituals that were part of the priesthood. And I think Meora Einaim is trying to open this up and say this information about the Kohanim and their appropriate behavior has to be expanded to regular people. And we need to also have ethics of behavior in terms of leadership and being available to people, but also saying the Kohen is an ordinary person, like everybody's an ordinary person. So he's really quite significant. He's no way considered a Reformed Jew, which, people said, well, the Reformed community got away with Kohanim. But if we even look further from the Jerusalem Talmud, Brachot 5:1, they are saying when a person, any person, is occupied with the need of the community, that person is occupied with Torah, meaning all of us who are doing good for the community are bringing Torah into the world. And it's not the Kohanim exclusively who have this job. So I think that's a very interesting 18th century comment on what is our our life now. But Rebecca, I see your hand up on the screen.
I'm getting confused. The Kohanim are considered priests. The Pharisees are considered priests, right? So
Yeah,
the
but
Pharisees part of the Kohanim, and then the Sanhedrin is the governing body?
so in the ancient world, people were and still might be considered born. And if your name is Kohen, if your father, and it exclusively goes through the matriarch, through the patriarchal, if they were a priest, that person was a priest, and they had a role in the ritual functioning of the Jewish community at the temple. After the temple was destroyed, the Kohanim did not have a role except for blessing people on Shabbat or other occasions when the community got together. It was like the president of Israel, who's not the prime minister. It was a function that was a ritual function. The Pharisees are a group of Kohanim who broke off, and it's an earlier part of uh, the structure, but the notion of Kohen is not that. And it means somebody who has a ritual function, period. In 18th century, Mayor Naim is saying, let's broaden this. Mara, I see your hand, so thank you. Good
Thank you.
question.
Actually,
All
it's me. I had a thought about the rules of marriage for the priests. Other countries have adopted this. I'm thinking of England. Until recently, the king or the queen or the prince and princesses, they couldn't marry somebody who was divorced. And I'm sure it's coming right out of the Torah. Your
Yes.
thoughts on that, maybe?
For what I know is it comes from the biblical literature here. And there was a concept of, I think, which had to do with sexual purity, that the woman who was marrying the Kohen had to be a virgin, had to have no sexual experience prior to that point, so that she was tahor, she was completely pure in that relationship. As time goes on, people change their concept and said, perhaps purity is based on behavior and on character and on other kinds of ways of evaluating if that's an appropriate spouse for a person in leadership. I remember, American presidents didn't used to be divorced, right? It was a big deal. And so things change over time in terms of expectation for public figures. Part of my question is the question today, if the ancient world demanded perfection and a certain kind of behavior for its leaders, shouldn't we expect that? And what does that mean in terms of religious leaders today? Whether, are religious leaders still carrying the transference from the community that you need to be perfect or you need to present a sense of perfect. And I think that also changed during during my career. Certainly, I went into a community where the rabbi spouse was very visible in some ways. But let me tell you, my husband was not. And there's not an expectation today that the rabbi spouse be visible or involved, and or a politician's spouse. Is there an expectation of different kinds of things for leadership that would be having to do with ethical behavior? And that's what I would hope in terms of leadership, both in the Jewish community and in the political community. And I know we're living through chaos in terms of ethics in a variety of ways. So please put your little yellow button on it because I can see whose hand is up then. Merle, I see your hand.
I mean, I grew up at Wilshire. I'm still a member. And I went from seeing and listening to people around me, seeing rabbis' wives who were always in the same 3 or 4 seats in a certain row, to where rabbis' wives, spouses were not visibly involved. They might have been, and I see it here now. I mean, our rabbi here is recently divorced. And when he sent the letter out to the congregation explaining what was going on with his family, it's been a year or almost a year, and there are people still that want to gossip about it, want to know why, and want to know. So I think that that's unfortunately very typical of people and what they see and what they want to know.
So the transference, the psychological transference to the leader is we want that person to represent a kind of purity, a kind of holiness, a kind of behavior beyond our personal behavior. And we're still hoping that that person is that way. And frankly, I am hoping that a person would be that way in terms of their behavior, their relationships with people, the fact that the rabbi wrote a letter that was candid to the community is quite something, because there was a time where the board would send out a note and tell that the rabbi or the cantor was divorced, or the person would be asked to leave. So are there other behavioral standards that we hope that are ethical in terms of the rabbi's relationship with the board, in terms of the financial responsibility of the rabbi to the board and to the temple president, and all those kinds of issues? And I think they're very much a part of our culture today because we're seeing so much unethical behavior in the public world that it is outrageous and disappointing, to say the least. Let's take one last comment, and then I want to have enough time for Kaddish.
So can I say something?
Yeah,
Okay,
I
please.
see your hand.
I'm going to
But
try to do
Penina,
it fast. Today, if you are a member of the Levy, like my husband was a Levy, so I became a Levy, or a Cohen, they're not allowed to go to a cemetery. So would you bring me again? I didn't know why. After I listened today to wherever it is that was going on at everybody's comments, I came to the conclusion that the reason today, it's still practicing because the rabbi and the Cohen and the Levy are in touch with a lot of other people. They're in charge of a community. So therefore, they are there and people come to them and people talk to them and they're surrounded constantly with people. And that's the reason that they're not allowed to go to the cemetery, because they're going to transfer wherever it is that put people in the ground, maybe to the live one. So this is the way I understand what's happening today regarding to what was happening then. How to connect the result of all these rules and regulations. That's all.
Very good. Thank you. There is a poem I would like to read you that is from the Kohen's wife. But Brad, I see your comment. Let's take your comment and then I'll read this poem.
Yeah, real quickly, I don't think humans are capable of perfection. What I look for is somebody who's trying to be better. That's how I would evaluate people and our leaders today by
Thank
that
you.
standard.
I'm going to underline that. Thank you. Thank you very much for your comment. In the Women's Torah commentary, there is a poem on page 745 that is written by Shulamit Sunamer, and it's an interpretation. It's called From the Kohen's Wife, as if she wrote this. It is lonely to be the wife of a Kohen. At funeral time, I sit by myself in the front row at the funeral chapel, listening to the eulogy over my nearest flesh and blood, knowing that my husband and sons are standing in the parking lot of the funeral home listening to the same eulogy piped over a loudspeaker outside just for them, who may not be in the same room with death. So I think that that poem really reflects that the humanity and the loneliness of the Kohen family in quite a beautiful way. Oh, God, it's tough. To change, thank you very much for this conversation. We recall, first of all, I wanted to say we are still praying for those who are held hostage. Grateful that Idan Alexander came out this week, but there are 59 other people who are still hostages. May they be free soon. Today, we recall a number of people who passed away during the past month.
What did you do? What do you want to do? The handicap? Absolutely.
Please turn off your microphone, Panina.
Let me get my purse. 1 minute, honey.
We
Running around like I'm on the Zoom.
The Kaddish list is this. Those who passed away during this past month are Gilda Luba Gold, Stephen Gribben, Judy Kessler, Bunny Perliter, Jim Sherman, Michelle Wolf.
Thank you so much.
We also recall those who died in the line of duty, both in the United States and in Israel. These are the archetypes that have occurred during the past week. James Leo Barbanel, Edmund Bastine, Evelyn Becker, Jack Ben Arroyo, Chaim Benishai, William Barrelson, Sam Dickman, Gordon Dishler, Betsy Dreisen, Burton Allen Eisenberg, Rabbi Morley Todd Feinstein, Felix Felds, Charlotte Fenning, Oscar, Ronald Aaron Fishman, Susan Pastor Fishman, Jerome Fleischman, Millicent Friedman, Jacqueline Furman, Jean Gantz, Bernard Benjamin Ginsberg, Billy Goldberg, Sam Goldberg, Michelle Joy Gomberg, Samuel Gorin, Charlotte Clayman Green, Tony Greenberg, Jules Green, Ben Habibi, Ella Hausman, Warner Heineman, Magda Hoffman, Relba Immerman, Samuel Itzhaki, Theodore Kapnick, Ruth Katz, Laura Keith, Akhtar Horsani, Stanley Kirshner, Beatrice Komisar, Jack Cravoy, Arnold Kronstadt, Harold Lederer, David Lubitz, Philip Mann, Harry Mankoff, Kitty Masloff, Winifred Melman, Diana Menser, Manavar Danesh Moghadam, Bernard Mogul, Jack Morris, Alan Moskowitz, Marie Edward Moss, Larry Nitz, Mariana Flazer, Richard Polip, Richard Polonsky, Leah Pozil, Madeline Madeline Price, Philip Rand, Rose Reiser, Harry Samuel Ralston, Sam Rosen, Harry Rosenblum, Jack Rosenblum, Frank Rosenblum, Rose Rosenbluth, William Douglas Rosner, Frida Sade, Eva Schenk, Robert Schlossberg, Mayor Schwartz, Pamela Schulman, Dora Silver, Jerry Sinclair, Harry Steinberg, William Troy, Samuel Tuck, Dave Vaughn, Sarah Vaughn, David Walter, Tom Wachold, Sonia Malin,
Yeah, very nice.
Tom Wallach, Sonia Wallen, Mildred Wager, Leah Vertel, Gablin Ferran Savide, Mike German,
Okay, then turn it off.
Ed Bertram.
Yeah, no,
Sorry,
because they can hear.
I am sorry
Yeah.
about the noise in the background. Are there additional names to add today? We also recall those who died defending the state of Israel and those who have no one to say Kaddish for them. We join as one community and recite Kaddish together. Yit Gadal, V'yit Gadash, Shemei Rabbah, V'yalma Tibrak Hirotei, V'yamlich Malchutei, B'chayechol Yomechol, B'chayedechol Beit Yisrael, Bagala Uvitvan Kari Vimru Amen. Yehi Shei Rabba Mivorach Leolam Umeomaya. Yitbarach V'yishtabach V'yitpa'ar V'yitromam V'yitnaseh V'yithadar V'yitaleh V'yitbucha Ve'ela Minko B'chata V'shirata Tush B'chata V'nechemata Amiran V'yalma V'imru Amen. Yehi Shlama Rabba Min Shemaya B'chaim Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael V'imru Amen. Oseh Shalom B'mnacham Uya Oseh Shalom Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael V'imru Amen. May God, who grants peace in the high places, bring peace into our world, into our homes, and into our hearts. And together we say, Amen.
Amen.
Okay. Thank you. Shabbat
Thank
Shalom.
you. Shabbat
Shabbat
shalom.
shalom,
Have a
everybody.
good day. I'm going to be away for 3 weeks. I'm going to see my kids in Vienna, and I will see you in the middle of June.
Nesiya tova.
Thank you. Thank you.
Have a safe trip.
Thank you. Have a good month. Take care.
Have a wonderful time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Shabbat shalom.
Hannah, are you there? Uh, uh, Hannah?